They saw a uniform. He saw opportunity. Witness how a prejudiced executive's mistake unleashed a genius who redefined corporate power. "I'm sorry, but you can't be here during our executive meeting," said manager Patricia Thorne, blocking the entrance to the Grand View Hotel's Grand Hall with her impeccable suit and fake smile. "Maintenance must wait outside." David Santos, 34, held his toolbox and looked calmly at the woman who had just treated him like an intruder. He was there to fix the air conditioning system that had broken down right in the middle of the most important international investment conference of the year, an event that brought together billionaires from 7 different countries. "Ma'am, I was called by the reception. The air conditioning has completely stopped, and the temperature has risen above 28 degrees, David began respectfully, but was interrupted by an executive in a gray suit who approached him angrily, wiping sweat from his forehead. "What the hell is going on here? We have Japanese, German, and Arab investors waiting for 20 minutes in an oven, and this employee is disrupting our meeting," growled the man, not even bothering to look directly at David. "Patricia, fix this, now." Patricia Thorne sighed dramatically, as if dealing with a stubborn child. "Look, I don't know how you got past security, but these are very important people discussing million-dollar deals. You don't belong here." It was at that moment that Mr. Robert Maxwell, billionaire CEO of Maxwell Global Investments, heard something that made him stop mid-sentence about international acquisitions. David had discreetly turned to a group of confused Asian investors near the window, who were gesturing nervously among themselves, and began speaking in fluent Japanese. "I'm sorry, the problems at this airport will be resolved shortly," David said with perfect Japanese pronunciation, explaining kindly that the technical problem would be resolved in minutes and apologizing for the inconvenience. The hall fell silent, even the waiters stopped serving water. Maxwell frowned deeply as he watched David address the German executives in perfect German. "I apologize for this inconvenience. The problem will be corrected in a few minutes." He then reassured the French representatives and finally explained the situation to the Arab investors in fluent Arabic. All this while Patricia Thorne and her fellow executives stared at him with a mixture of shock, indignation, and something dangerously close to panic. "That's impossible," someone behind Maxwell muttered. "A bricklayer simply couldn't." "He can't know those languages," another executive added, his voice heavy with disbelief and something darker. David finished his explanations, and the international investors, who seconds earlier had seemed ready to walk out of the meeting, now watched him with genuine respect and gratitude. One of the Japanese even bowed politely, clearly impressed not only by the fluency but by the appropriate cultural courtesy. Patricia felt the blood rush to her face. "Richard, this is absurd. How can a maintenance man—" "Patricia!" Maxwell interrupted her in a tone that made the entire room turn toward him. "Shut up, now!" David picked up his toolbox and walked with dignity toward the air conditioning control panel, his movements precise and professional. But his eyes revealed something Maxwell recognized immediately, the same cold, calculating determination he himself possessed when he was about to execute a devastating business move. As David worked on the panel, removing the cover with expert movements, Maxwell approached slowly. "How many languages do you speak, exactly?" David looked him straight in the eye for the first time, without lowering his gaze or showing any intimidation. "9 fluently, sir: Japanese, German, French, Arabic, Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, Mandarin, and English. 3 others: conversational Russian, Korean, and Hindi." "And how long have you worked here?" 2 years, sir. "General maintenance, plumbing, electrical, air conditioning, carpentry, whatever the hotel needs," David replied, his calm voice masking something much deeper and more powerful. Patricia could no longer contain her indignation. "Richard, we need to have a serious talk about the hiring standards at this hotel. It is completely unacceptable for maintenance staff to interfere in executive meetings, no matter how many languages they claim to speak. There is a hierarchy here that must be respected." The temperature in the room was gradually dropping as David worked, but the tension in the air was rising exponentially. "Patricia," Maxwell's voice cut through the air like a sharp blade. You just made the biggest mistake of your career, and perhaps of your life. David smiled discreetly as he closed the air conditioning panel, the system returning to normal with a soft hum. But anyone watching him closely would have noticed that this was not a smile of relief or satisfaction at a job well done. It was the dangerous smile of someone who had held powerful cards for too long and had finally found the perfect moment to play them. If you're enjoying this story of prejudice and surprising discoveries, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to find out how a simple moment of discrimination would turn into the most unexpected twist that luxury hotel had ever witnessed. 3 hours after the incident in the lounge, Patricia Thorne called an emergency meeting with the hotel's general manager, Stephen Walsh, and 2 supervisors. Her voice was heavy with barely contained indignation. "This is unacceptable, Stephen. A maintenance employee interfered in an executive meeting with the country's biggest investors. No matter how many languages he claims to speak, there is a hierarchy here that must be respected." Stephen, a 50-year-old man who knew every employee by name, frowned. "Patricia, from what I've been told, David just helped solve a technical problem and even managed to calm down the international investors. Where exactly is the problem?" She interrupted sharply. "The problem is that now Robert Maxwell is asking questions about our hidden talents and questioning our human resources policies. This young man may have caused institutional embarrassment." Meanwhile, 3 floors below, David was organizing his tools in the maintenance closet when his phone vibrated. It was a message from Marcus Thompson, his only real friend at the hotel, a 55-year-old African-American veteran who worked as the head of night security. "Man, they're talking about you upstairs. Patricia is furious. Want to meet after work? I need to tell you a few things." David smiled as he read the message. Marcus didn't know it, but that conversation would be more important than he could have imagined. That afternoon, Maxwell did something unusual. He went down to the Human Resources Department himself. "I want to see the complete file on employee David Santos," he told the coordinator, a nervous woman named Linda. "Mr. Maxwell, it's highly irregular for a CEO to request individual files on operational employees," she began, but was silenced by a look that was worth billions. "Linda, bring me the file, now." 10 minutes later, Maxwell was engrossed in reading. David Santos, 34, Brazilian-born, American citizen. Education, incomplete degree in civil engineering, Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. Reason for interruption, family financial issues. Previous experience, freelance translator, language instructor, industrial maintenance technician. But what caught her attention most was a handwritten note at the bottom: highly qualified candidate for the position. Will accept well below market salary due to urgent financial needs. Interesting, Maxwell muttered. Very interesting. Meanwhile, Patricia wasn't sitting around. She made 3 strategic phone calls that afternoon, 2 to contacts on the hotel's board of directors, and 1 to a private investigator she used for special background checks. "I want to know everything about this David Santos, criminal history, debts, immigration issues, anything we can use. And I want it by tomorrow at 11 p.m. David met Marcus in the hotel parking lot. Marcus lit a cigarette and got straight to the point. "Brother, this Patricia is out to get you. I heard her talking to the management. She wants your head. And what's worse, she's got people upstairs who can back her up." David nodded calmly. "I figured as much. People like her don't like it when the natural order of things is questioned. Man, you need to protect yourself. I know you're not just a maintenance guy. In 2 years working together, I've seen you solve problems that engineers couldn't. I've heard you talking on the phone in languages I didn't even know existed." Marcus stopped and stared at him. "Who are you, really?" David took a deep breath. It was time to trust someone. "Marcus, I was a civil engineer in Brazil. I worked for a multinational company, talking to clients from all over the world. When my mother got sick, I came here to get treatment for her complicated paperwork. Money ran out. She died before I could get a visa. I ended up staying. And why don't you go back to your field?" David smiled, But there was something different about that smile, a cold determination that Marcus had never seen before. Because sometimes you have to be down to see who's really up. And now that I've seen, I have some plans. Marcus threw his cigarette away. What kind of plans? The kind that will make Patricia Thorne regret underestimating the maintenance man. That night, David didn't sleep. In his small apartment, he opened a laptop that no one at the hotel knew he owned and began accessing websites that revealed a completely hidden side of his life: LinkedIn in 3 different languages, a portfolio of international projects, a network of contacts that spanned 5 continents. And then he did something that would change everything. He sent an email to a phone number he had saved 2 years ago, waiting for the right moment. "Ricardo, this is David Santos, remember me? Engineer on the bridge construction in Sao Paulo. I need a favor. It's time to show some people that underestimating talent can be the most expensive mistake of their lives." While waiting for a reply, David looked out the window of his apartment, watching the city lights. For 2 years, he had been invisible, underestimated, treated like just another disposable employee. But invisibility can be a powerful weapon when used intelligently. And David Santos was about to prove that some people confuse humility with weakness at their own peril. The next morning, Patricia Thorne arrived at the hotel with a victorious smile. Her private investigator had found exactly what she wanted. David Santos had a history of irregular documentation in the United States. Technically, he had worked without authorization during his first months in the country. "Stephen, I need to talk to you urgently," she said, interrupting the general manager in his office. "I've discovered something serious about our problem employee." She spread the documents across the table like cards in a winning hand. David Santos worked illegally when he first arrived in the United States. This is a serious violation of hotel policy and could cause us huge legal problems. Stephen Walsh examined the papers, frowning. "Patricia, that was years ago. He regularized his status in." "It doesn't matter," she cut him off. "We need to fire him today, before Robert Maxwell finds out we have an employee with an irregular history working here." But what Patricia didn't know was that 3 floors above, Robert Maxwell was in a video conference that would change everything. "Ricardo Mendoza, my old friend," Maxwell said, greeting the man on the screen. "Thank you for taking my call so early." Ricardo Mendoza, CEO of the largest construction company in Latin America, smiled from the other side of the screen. "Richard, I was surprised to receive your message last night. You mentioned something about a David Santos." "That's right. Do you know him?" Ricardo's face lit up. "David Santos? The brilliant engineer who designed the Rio-Sao Paulo bridge? Of course I know him. He's one of the most competent professionals I've ever worked with." "Why do you ask?" Maxwell felt something cold run down his spine. The Rio-Sao Paulo bridge, one of the most complex engineering projects of the last 10 years. David led the entire international structural design team. He dealt with German, Japanese, and Arab teams. The man is a genius. Please tell me you haven't lost him to a competitor." Maxwell said slowly, "Where exactly is David Santos working now?" "Well, after his mother fell ill, he came to the United States for treatment. We lost touch, but we always hoped he would return." "Why did you hire him?" Maxwell hung up the phone, his mind spinning. David Santos wasn't just a skilled engineer, he was an international engineering legend. And he was working as a maintenance technician at his hotel. Meanwhile, Patricia descended to the hotel basement with a security guard to carry out the dismissal. She found David organizing tools in the storage room as usual. "David Santos," she said, her voice laden with false authority, "by management decision, your services are no longer required. You have until the end of the day to collect your belongings." David stared at her calmly. "May I ask why?" Patricia smiled cruelly. "We have discovered irregularities in your work documentation. The hotel cannot keep employees with a questionable background." "I see," David said, his voice strangely calm. "And Mr. Maxwell approved this decision?" "Mr. Maxwell doesn't need to concern himself with operational personnel issues," Patricia replied, relishing every word. Now, please hand over your badge and keys. It was at that moment that Patricia's cell phone rang. It was a call from Stephen Walsh. Patricia, where are you? Richard Maxwell wants to see you and David Santos in his executive suite, now. Patricia's blood ran cold. Stephen, I can explain. Patricia, do you have any idea who David Santos is? 20 minutes later, Patricia, David, and Stephen were in Maxwell's executive suite. The atmosphere was tense, like a steel cable about to snap. Patricia, Maxwell began, his voice deadly calm, could you explain to me why you're firing the chief engineer who designed one of the most complex bridges in the world? Patricia paled. I didn't know. You didn't know? Maxwell opened his laptop and turned the screen toward her. David Santos, civil engineer, specializing in international structures, led projects in 12 countries, speaks 9 languages because he worked directly with multinational teams on billion-dollar projects. David remained silent, watching Patricia crumble. But the most interesting thing, Maxwell continued, is what I found out about you, Patricia. He opened a folder on his computer, screenshots of your messages in the private managers group where you refer to Latino employees as immigration problems and black employees as diversity quotas. Patricia tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come out. WhatsApp messages where you instructed other managers to keep these types in their place, and my favorite, your message to the board of directors asking to clean the hotel of undesirable elements. Where did you get this? Patricia stammered. David finally spoke. Marcus Thompson, head of security, excellent with technology. And it turns out that some employees saved your messages before you tried to delete them. Maxwell smiled coldly. Patricia Thorne, you're fired for cause. And since your actions constitute racial discrimination and harassment, we will be reporting this to the Civil Rights Department. Patricia tried one last desperate gambit. You can't do this. I have rights. I have contacts. You have the right to leave this hotel immediately, Maxwell said. Security is on its way. As Patricia was escorted out, David remained in the room. David, Maxwell said, I have a proposal. How about taking over supervision of all our international expansion projects, starting with a salary of $200,000 a year? David smiled. Not the restrained smile of before, but a genuine smile of someone who had finally seen justice done. Mr. Maxwell, it would be an honor. Downstairs, in the lobby that had been the scene of her humiliation 2 days earlier, Patricia Thorne carried a box containing her belongings while employees whispered and stared at her. The woman who had spent years despising people for their origins was now being seen for exactly what she had always been, small, cruel, and completely expendable. But the story was not over yet. What Patricia did not know was that her dismissal would be only the beginning of a much more devastating fall, and that David Santos had even more surprises in store regarding his true influence in the international corporate world. 6 months later, David Santos was in his office on the 15th floor of the Grandview Hotel, reviewing expansion contracts for 3 new hotels in Europe. His mahogany desk was covered with documents in 6 different languages, and his assistant had just confirmed a video conference with investors in Dubai for 2 p.m. The transformation had been extraordinary, but not just for David, the entire hotel breathed differently. Marcus Thompson had been promoted to head of corporate security after David discovered that he had digital security certifications that no one had bothered to check. Linda from the former HR team now led the new Hidden Talents program, identifying employees with underutilized skills throughout the hotel chain. The program had already uncovered a receptionist who spoke 4 languages, a waiter with an MBA who paid his bills by working night shifts, and a housekeeper who was a certified accountant in Peru. The meeting with the Japanese was a complete success, reported Stephen Walsh, entering David's office. They were impressed not only with your language skills but with your strategic vision for the Asian market. David smiled, remembering how just 6 months earlier Patricia had tried to stop him from entering the same room where he was now closing million-dollar deals. And Patricia? David asked, even though he already knew the answer. Stephen grimaced. the discriminatory messages were leaked to the local press. No reputable hotel wants to hire her. I hear she's working as a supervisor at a motel on the highway. What Stephen didn't mention, but David knew from Marcus, was that Patricia had lost much more than her job. Her husband, a respected lawyer, had filed for divorce when the prejudiced messages became public. Her 2 daughters, both college students, had cut off contact with her out of shame. She had gone from respected executive to social pariah in a matter of weeks. Karma is an interesting thing, David murmured, without malice in his voice, just the realization of someone who had seen the natural justice of the universe in action. That afternoon, David received a call that made him smile genuinely. It was Ricardo Mendoza, his former boss in Brazil. "David, I need you back. I'm putting together the largest infrastructure project in Latin America, and I want you leading the international team." "Ricardo, I'm very happy here. Maxwell has given me complete autonomy to expand the business internationally." "Then how about a partnership? Your new hotel company could be our official lodging partner on all projects." David looked out his office window, watching the city that 2 years earlier had welcomed him as a desperate immigrant looking for work in any field. Now he was about to close international partnerships that would move hundreds of millions of dollars. "Let's talk, Ricardo. I have some ideas." That evening, the Grand View Hotel hosted a special ceremony. David had insisted that he didn't want anything pompous, but Maxwell had completely ignored his objections. In the same hall where Patricia had tried to humiliate him, David now received a plaque recognizing him as Executive of the Year from the International Hotel Association. "When I was a child in Brazil," David said into the microphone, looking out at the audience of executives, investors, and hotel employees, "my grandmother always said, 'Grandson, never judge a person by the clothes they wear or the job they do. Judge them by the size of their heart and the strength of their dreams.'" The audience was completely silent. "I spent 2 years cleaning these same hallways, fixing air conditioners, unclogging sinks, and you know what? It was the best MBA course I could have taken. I learned that true leadership doesn't come from a title, it comes from how you treat people when no one is looking." The applause was deafening, but David wasn't finished. "I want to dedicate this award to all the employees who are ignored, underestimated, treated as invisible. You are not invisible. You are the heart of any organization. And to the executives here today, before you judge someone by the uniform they wear, ask yourself, do you really know who stands before you?" Marcus Thompson, now wearing an impeccable suit instead of his security uniform, applauded from the front row, alongside Linda and all the employees who had been promoted through the Hidden Talents program. 3 tables back, a journalist from Fortune Business magazine was frantically taking notes. David's story would become the cover story of the next issue, titled "The Invisible Engineer: How Corporate Bias Almost Cost a Hotel Company Millions." But David's real victory wasn't in the awards or financial success. It was in the email he received the following week from a young Latina woman who worked as a cleaning lady in a corporate office in Chicago. "Mr. Santos, I read your story in the magazine today. For the first time in 3 years, I had the courage to talk to my boss about my accounting degree. Thank you for showing me that being underestimated doesn't mean you're less capable." Patricia Thorne had tried to destroy David Santos because she couldn't accept that greatness has no color, social class, or uniform. In the end, she only destroyed herself, while David built an empire based on the recognition of human value. The best revenge is not to destroy those who hurt you, it's to build something so extraordinary that they realize exactly what they lost when they chose to underestimate you. Have you ever been underestimated by someone who judged you by your appearance or social status? Leave a comment about how you reacted, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove that true talent always finds a way to shine, even when others try to hide it in the shadows. If this story of transformation and justice touched your heart, subscribe to the channel right now for more stories that prove that true power does not lie in having privileges, but in turning obstacles into opportunities for extraordinary growth.